Hello, family. I got something I want to discuss with you. So, I was watching the news the other day, and I saw the current president talking about the opioid crisis that's currently afflicting America, he says. And it's funny to me that it was not an opioid crisis. It wasn't a crisis, and I'm going to get back to that word in a minute. It wasn't a crisis until we saw white people passed out at bus stops. Passed out, in cars, leaving their kids to go, get opioids or whatever. It wasn't a crisis until then. Up until then, it was no big problem. And here's the thing. Opioids have been around forever. When our soldiers were coming back from the Vietnam War, especially in the black community, heroin really hit hard in the 60s with soldiers coming back from the Vietnam War. It wasn't a crisis then. It wasn't a problem then. It wasn't a problem or a crisis until we saw white people, middle-aged white people, I might add, being affected, being videoed, passed out, or slumped all over. Then it became a crisis. And then they labeled it a crisis. But when the government introduced crack cocaine into our communities in the 80s, it was an epidemic. See, a crisis doesn't sound as harrowing as an epidemic. An epidemic, it has a connotation. It's just sweeping through, just devastating everything. Crisis it's more, genteel and, it'll pass. It invokes that more gentle nature of a word as opposed to epidemic. And with the opioid crisis, they have compassion for those being affected, for those hooked on opioids. They have compassion. But now when crack cocaine hit our community and devastated our community in the 80s, where was that compassion? No, they locked those people up. They had no compassion. Every user, every dealer, everyone was locked up, treated the same. If you were a crack addict, hooked on a substance you had never known, you never seen, you didn't know how powerful it was, that your government introduced into your community, your government. Where was the compassion then for our people? There was no compassion. We were treated like animals, locked up, thrown in cages, threw away the key. That's why they came up with the 3-strike laws. That's why they came up with these mandatory drug sentences, the war on drugs, which was a war on black people, which said that if you get caught with small amounts of crack cocaine, you'll be sent mandatory sentencing. But if you get caught with small amounts of cocaine, well, we're going to send you to rehab. We're going to help you out. Why? Because black people were more, they were more likely to be hooked on crack because that was seen as an urban drug. Cocaine, an affluent drug, a white people's drug. So they were given a slap on the wrist and sent to drug court. We're going to send you to rehab. But a black person get caught with a rock, lock them up for 5 years. A rock that this government, our government, introduced so they could sell arms to the Iran-Contras. Isn't that funny? Now, back to this opioid crisis. When the first Gulf War hit, President Bush was in office. Even with the second Gulf War, he was in office. How did they make their money, people? Oil. So when they went to war, it's no coincidence that the price of gas shot up. Who controls most of Iraq's oil fields now? Yeah, the United States government. Think about that. Now, we went to war in Afghanistan. Afghanistan, one of the chief exports that they're known for is poppy. You might not know this, but poppy is a derivative of opioids. Yeah. So we control the poppy fields. So now the opioid epidemic, the crisis, is gripping America. Come on, people. Put 1 and 1 together. You can't get 5 for 1 plus 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. Y'all can choose to stay blind all you want, but it'd be a shame to go your whole life without opening your eyes and seeing things for what they really are. Y'all stay up.